The emergency transmission crackled through the command deck of the Galactic Council flagship with a sound that made Admiral Zixthor's 3 hearts stop beating in sequence. Commander Vrel's face appeared on the holographic display, and his scales had turned the gray color that meant pure terror among their species. "Admiral," Vrel gasped through the static. "We need immediate evacuation. We need it now. Most of my troops are dead. The planet is. It's killing them. Everything here kills." Zixthor leaned forward in his command throne, and his clawed hands gripped the armrests until they creaked under the pressure. "Commander, report clearly. What enemy force engaged you? How many human soldiers attacked the landing site?" Vrel let out a sound that might have been laughter, or might have been sobbing. "No soldiers, Admiral. No enemy at all. The planet itself, the very ground and air and water are hostile. My troops are dying from simply existing here. We landed 50,000 strong. 72 hours ago, I have fewer than 1,500 left alive." The command deck fell silent, and every officer present turned to stare at the display. 50,000 soldiers, reduced to 1,500 in 3 days without enemy action, was impossible by every military calculation in Council history. Zixthor felt his stomach turn cold. "I want the initial survey reports on this planet immediately," he commanded. An aide rushed forward with a data tablet, and Zixthor scrolled through the information that had convinced the Council this invasion would be simple. Earth was listed as a Class 7 agricultural world with a primitive species that had barely achieved chemical propulsion into space. The survey noted diverse biosphere and abundant water resources, and a population of several billion concentrated in urban centers. Threat assessment was marked as minimal. Zixthor's secondary eyelids closed slowly as he realized what had transpired. Had happened. The survey team had never landed on the surface, and they had scanned from orbit and made assumptions based on their own comfortable homeworlds. Diverse biosphere meant something very different than what they had understood. Admiral Vrel's voice pulled him back. "I need an answer now. Are you sending extraction ships, or are we going to die here in this bunker?" "What bunker, Commander? Explain your tactical situation." The display switched to external cameras, and Zixthor saw what remained of the invasion force. They had retreated into their own landing craft and sealed every door and airlock. Through the windows he could see what looked like a pleasant forest, with tall trees and green undergrowth. It looked harmless and peaceful, and absolutely nothing like the nightmare Vrel was describing. "We cannot go outside, Admiral. The first day we lost 3,000 troops to things we couldn't even see. Tiny flying creatures. Inject toxins. Plants that cause burning pain on contact. Animals that hunt in groups. The very air makes us sick." Vrel's voice was rising in pitch. "We sent a scouting party to find water, and they were consumed by insects. Just insects, Admiral. Millions of tiny creatures that stripped the flesh from their bones in minutes. Another team died in the night because the temperature dropped and our suits couldn't compensate. We didn't know this planet had such extreme temperature variations." Zixthor pulled up the planetary data again. Standard rotation of 24 hours, with axial tilt causing seasonal variations, and temperature ranges from -40 to +50 in the measurement system his people used. His own homeworld varied by perhaps 10 degrees across the entire year. "The gravity," Vrel continued, "it's crushing us, 40% higher than standard, and my troops are exhausted from simply standing. We sent soldiers in powered armor, and something in the soil corroded the seals within hours. The bacteria here eat metal, Admiral. They eat our equipment." The Admiral stood and paced across his command deck. This was worse than any combat scenario he had trained for, because there was no enemy to fight, and no strategy that could counter an entire planet. "I tried to tell them," he muttered. 6 months ago he had sat in the council chambers, when Councillor Thrace proposed annexing this planet for its water resources. Zixthor had argued for more thorough surveys and for attempting diplomatic contact first. Thrace had dismissed his concerns and pointed to the threat assessment and called him overly cautious. The council voted to authorize military annexation. 50,000 troops to secure a primitive world and establish council authority. It should have been simple. Alert the council, Zixthor commanded. Emergency session immediately. Tell them I need to brief them on a catastrophic situation, and get our xenobiology team to start analyzing everything we know about this planet. I want to know what we're actually dealing with. The display flickered, and Vrel's image was replaced by data streams showing casualty reports. The numbers were staggering, and losses from environmental factors and equipment failure and what the system labeled as biological incompatibility. Commander Vrel had felt confident when the landing craft descended through Earth's atmosphere 96 hours ago. His troops were the finest the Galactic Council could provide, and trained for every combat scenario, and equipped with weapons that could level cities. They were going to claim this primitive world for the Council, and its inhabitants would have no choice but to submit. The landing site had been chosen carefully, according to orbital surveys. A large forested area near the equator, with no major human settlements nearby and plenty of cover. The plan was to establish a secure base, and then move on the nearest city to demonstrate Council superiority. The landing craft settled into a clearing, and Vrel watched his troops deploy in perfect formation. 50,000 soldiers in powered armor, and carrying weapons that could punch through starship hulls. He remembered feeling pride at the sight. That feeling lasted approximately 7 minutes. Private Kelth was the first casualty. He had moved into the tree line to establish a perimeter sensor, when he suddenly screamed and tore at his helmet. "Something bit me," he shouted. "Something is inside my armor." The medics rushed to help, but by the time they got his armor off, Kelth's body was covered in swelling marks. His 3 eyes had sealed shut, and his breathing passages were closing. He died before they could get him back to the medical bay. "What attacked him?" Vrel had demanded. The medics examined the body and found a tiny creature, no bigger than Vrel's smallest claw. It was an insect of some kind, with a stinger, and it had somehow penetrated the armor seals. One insect did this. Vrel couldn't believe it. "Analysis shows it injected a complex venom, sir," the medic reported. "Our antitoxin protocols don't recognize the chemical structure." Before Vrel could respond, 3 more soldiers started, screaming. Then 5 more. Then a dozen. The air was full of tiny flying creatures that his troops couldn't see until they were being stung. Vrel ordered everyone back into the landing craft, but not before they lost another 100 soldiers to these invisible attackers. "Sir, we need to establish our base," his second-in-command argued. "We cannot complete our mission from inside the ships." Vrel knew this was true, so he ordered the engineers to set up environmental shields and proper sealed perimeter. The engineers began their work, but reported strange problems immediately. "Commander, our equipment is malfunctioning, the seals are corroding, there is something in the soil that is eating the metal." Vrel went to see for himself, and watched in horror as their advanced alloys bubbled and weakened. The engineers managed to establish a partial perimeter before nightfall, using ceramic materials, but they had to abandon most of their metal equipment. Then the sun set, and everything got worse. The temperature dropped rapidly, and Vrel's troops began to suffer. Their suits were designed for the stable climate of their homeworld, where temperature varied by perhaps a few degrees. Here it fell by 30 degrees in a matter of hours. Soldiers started collapsing from hypothermia, and the medical bay filled with casualties. "Why didn't the survey mention extreme temperature variations?" someone shouted. Vrel didn't have an answer. When dawn came, he had lost another 800 troops to the cold. He sent out a reconnaissance team to map the area and find water sources. 20 soldiers in a heavily armored transport with full sensor equipment. They reported finding a stream 2 kilometers from the base. That was the last transmission Vrel received from them. A recovery team found the transport 6 hours later. The doors were open, and there were drag marks leading into the forest. Following the trail, they found pieces of armor and equipment scattered across 100 meters. Then they found the bodies, or what was left of them. The bones were picked clean and scattered. Whatever had attacked them had been thorough. "Sir, the sensor logs show they were overwhelmed by small organisms," the recovery team leader reported. "Millions of them. They appear to be a form of cooperative insect. Insects killed 20 armed soldiers. The logs show they tried to fight, sir, but there were too many. The creatures got into the armor seals and consumed them." Vrel felt sick. Another team reported contact with a large predator. They sent a video feed, and Vrel watched a creature the humans apparently called a jaguar. It was beautiful in a terrible way, and all muscle and teeth and spotted fur. It moved through the forest like liquid shadow. One of his soldiers fired at it with a weapon that should have vaporized the creature. The jaguar dodged, and the soldier's aim was affected by the high gravity that none of them had fully adjusted to. The predator covered 50 meters in seconds and leaped at the soldier. The armor held for perhaps 3 seconds before the jaguar's claws found the seals. Vrel stopped watching before the end. The soldiers retreated, and the jaguar followed them back to the perimeter. Her unit had been dispatched to investigate what radar had initially flagged as a crashed aircraft in the Amazon rainforest. Now standing at the edge of the clearing, she was looking at something that definitely was not any aircraft she recognized. "Those are spaceships," Lieutenant Ferreira said beside her. "I can see that, Jorge," Maria replied. There were dozens of crafts scattered across the clearing, and all of them sealed tight with what looked like blast doors. Heat signatures showed life inside, but nothing was moving. "Should we attempt contact?" Ferreira asked. Maria considered the situation. First contact with aliens was technically above her pay grade, but Command had ordered her to investigate and establish the situation. "Let's approach carefully, full equipment. Treat it like a rescue operation until we know otherwise." Her squad moved forward through the forest with practiced ease. They had all grown up in or near the Amazon and knew how to move through the dense vegetation. Maria noticed Ferreira swatted a mosquito without breaking stride. Private Costa paused to check his boot after stepping near a fallen log and making sure no snake had taken offense. These were automatic behaviors drilled into anyone who spent time in the rainforest. The clearing was full of strange equipment that looked partially melted or corroded. There were what might have been defensive positions that had been abandoned. Scattered around were pieces of armor and weapons. "Contact," Sergeant Oliveira called out. "I have a body over here." Maria moved to his position and looked down at what was definitely an alien corpse. It was humanoid, but with scaled skin and too many joints in the limbs. "What killed it?" she asked. Oliveira pointed to the massive swelling on the body. "If I had to guess, Captain, anaphylactic shock. Looks like it got stung by something." Felt a strange mix of emotions. These aliens had apparently been killed by bees or wasps. Before she could process that fully, one of the landing craft opened a door. A creature appeared in the opening, wearing what had to be a spacesuit. It held no weapons, and its body language screamed desperation. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going for 3 hours, and Admiral Zixthor was losing his patience. Councillor Thrace was still arguing that the casualty reports must be exaggerated. 50,000 trained soldiers cannot be defeated by plants and animals, Thrace insisted. It is statistically impossible. And yet it happened, Zixthor replied coldly. I have full documentation, medical records, sensor logs, and testimony from the survivors. Perhaps your troops were simply poorly trained? Zixthor's claws extended involuntarily. Counselor, those were elite forces, the same units that secured the Velic Rebellion and pacified the Thorn systems. They were not poorly trained. They were fighting an environment that no military doctrine could prepare them for. Another counselor spoke up. Admiral, I have reviewed the data on this planet Earth. It shows oxygen levels that should be toxic to most species, temperature variations that should prevent complex life, and a gravitational force that would cripple our soldiers. Why was this planet ever considered for annexation? Because the initial survey was conducted from orbit, Zixtor explained. The team noted abundant water and diverse biosphere, but they never understood what diverse meant in this context. He pulled up images of Earth's wildlife. This creature is called a box jellyfish. It contains enough venom to kill 60 council species. It is nearly invisible in water. Humans swim in oceans where these exist. More images appeared. This is a honey badger. It weighs 12 kilograms. It regularly fights and kills creatures 10 times its size. Humans consider it amusing. This is a mosquito. It carries diseases that have killed billions of humans throughout their history. They are annoying pests to them. The council chamber was silent as image after image appeared. Spiders and scorpions and snakes and crocodiles and sharks, bears and wolves. Every single one would be an apex predator on most council worlds. How do humans survive? Someone whispered. They evolved there, Zixtor said. Every single threat on that planet made them stronger. They developed immune systems that can fight off thousands of pathogens. They created tools and weapons. They learned to work together. Earth made them into survivors. Before the argument could continue, an aide rushed in. Admiral, the humans are attempting to make contact. They found our troops. They are requesting communication. The council chamber erupted in discussion. They found them already. Thrace looks panicked. Do they know it was an invasion? Are they mobilizing for war? Put them through, Zixtor commanded. The holographic display activated, and a human appeared. She wore a simple uniform, and was holding what looked like a cup of some steaming liquid. Good afternoon, she said in perfect council standard language. My name is Ambassador Sarah Chen, representing the United Nations of Earth. I understand we have some of your people in need of medical attention. Zixtor studied the human carefully. She was small by council standards and appeared fragile, but there was something in her eyes that suggested strength. Ambassador Chen, I am Admiral Zixtor of the Galactic Council. Yes, we have a situation. Our personnel require evacuation from your planet immediately. Of course, we are happy to help. Chen took a sip from her cup. Though I do have some questions about why 50,000 armed soldiers landed in Brazil without permission. You know it was an invasion force. Commander Vrel was very forthcoming. Chen smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. He explained that the Galactic Council decided to annex Earth for our water resources. We would like to discuss that decision. Councillor Thrace pushed forward. You are a primitive species. You have no right to refuse council authority. Chen's smile got colder. Counselor, we have been monitoring your communications. We know what happened to your troops. We know that Earth's environment alone reduced your invasion force by 97% in 3 days. She took another sip from her cup. What you are drinking? Zixtor asked. Coffee, Chen replied. It is a beverage we make from roasted plant beans. Would you like some? What are its properties? It contains a chemical called caffeine, which is a stimulant, helps us stay awake and alert. An aide quickly scanned the database. Admiral, that substance would be lethal to most council species. It is classified as a dangerous alkaloid. Chen raised her eyebrows. Really? We drink it recreationally. Some people consume 4 or 5 cups a day. You consume poison for pleasure? Thrace looked horrified. We also eat plants that contain capsaicin, which activates our pain receptors. We call it spicy food. It is considered delicious. The council chamber was dead silent. Let me understand this, Zixtor said slowly. You intentionally consume substances that cause pain, and you enjoy it? Well, yes. Chen looked confused by the question. How else would you eat food? Without pain, several counselors said in unison. Chen laughed. That sounds boring. Anyway, we are getting off topic. You invaded our planet. Your troops are dying. We are willing to provide medical care and transportation back to your ships. In exchange, we want a formal apology and reparations for the damage your landing craft caused to the rainforest. Reparations? Thrace sputtered. We should be demanding your surrender. Based on what leverage exactly? Chen asked. Your invasion failed spectacularly, without us firing a single shot. I should mention that our military is somewhat curious about your weapons technology. We have been examining the equipment your troops abandoned. Zixtor felt cold dread. You have our weapons, and your armor and your sensors, and your communications equipment, Shen confirmed. Very interesting designs. We are learning a lot. Of course, we would be happy to return it all as part of a peace negotiation. She leaned forward. Let me be very clear, Admiral Counselors. We do not want war. We are happy to join the galactic community as equals. But if you attempt to invade us again, we will respond. And you now know that humans are very good at surviving hostile environments. Are you threatening us? Thrace demanded. I am explaining the situation, Shen replied. You attacked us. We defended ourselves. Now we are offering peace. I strongly suggest you accept. Zixtor made a decision. Ambassador Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize for the unauthorized military action against your world. We would like to begin formal diplomatic relations immediately. Admiral, that is a good start. I have questions. Zixtor continued. Your planet is classified as extremely hostile by our standards. How did your species survive? Chen considered the question. Earth had several ice ages where much of the planet was covered in glaciers. We survived with primitive tools. We had plague outbreaks that killed a third of our population. We survived. We had volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun. We survived. We fought wars with each other using weapons that could destroy cities. We survived. You are saying humans are naturally resilient? I am saying we are stubborn, Admiral, Chen corrected. We refuse to quit. It is our most defining characteristic. Earth tried to kill us for 300,000 years. We are still here. She finished her toxic beverage. Now let us discuss the practical matters. We need to evacuate your wounded. We are sending medical teams and transport. We will also need to establish protocols for future contact. I assume you have other species in your council who might want to visit Earth. After seeing what happened to our troops, Zixtor said honestly, I doubt many will volunteer. That is probably wise, Chen agreed. We should establish a space station in orbit for diplomatic meetings, neutral ground where your people do not have to face our gravity or biosphere. You are being very reasonable, considering we attempted to conquer you. Admiral, we are interested in peace and trade and cultural exchange, Chen said. We are not interested in holding grudges. Besides, your troops did not actually harm any humans. The Amazon took care of them for us. She smiled that cold smile again. Though I should mention that if you had reached our cities, the situation would have been different. We do have military forces. We just did not need them. The implications hung in the air. Earth's environment alone had destroyed the invasion. What would Earth's actual military forces be capable of? And we accept your terms, Zixtor said quickly before Thrace could object. Peace and trade, and we will pay for all damages. Excellent. I will send you coordinates for the rescue operation. Oh, and Admiral. Yes, Ambassador. We have reports that one of your scouts encountered a jaguar. We are very sorry about those casualties. We will post warning signs about the wildlife for any future visitors. She said it so casually, as if posting signs would somehow make Earth less terrifying. The transmission ended, and the council chamber erupted in argument. But Zixtor was already planning. He needed to completely revise Earth's threat classification. He needed to establish protocols for dealing with this dangerous new species. Most importantly, He needed to make sure humanity never decided to stop being friendly, because he had just realized something terrifying. If Earth's environment was this deadly, and humans considered it home, then humans were the most dangerous species in known space, and they had just offered friendship instead of revenge. The Council had better accept that offer. 6 months had passed since the failed invasion, and the Galactic Council chambers looked very different now. A new seat had been added for the representative from Earth. Ambassador Chen sat there now, looking comfortable, despite being surrounded by species that could easily crush her. Admiral Zixthor had requested and received the position of Council Ambassador to Earth. It was a duty most considered punishment, but he had wanted it. Someone needed to understand these humans, and he had made it his mission. The next item on the agenda, Counselor Thrace announced with obvious reluctance, is Earth's application for protected world status. Chen stood. The Council has reviewed our planet's environmental data. We are formally requesting that Earth be designated a Class 1 Deathworld with restrictions on unauthorized landings. That classification has never been used, another counselor pointed out. That is because you have never encountered a planet like Earth. Chen replied, we do not want tourists wandering into dangerous areas. We do not want more incidents like the invasion. The motion passed unanimously. No one wanted to send more people to Earth without proper preparation. We have another proposal, Chen continued. Earth would like to offer Deathworld survival training to Council military forces, for a fee, of course. That generated significant discussion. You want to train our soldiers? Thrace asked. We want to share what we know about surviving hostile environments, Chen explained. Your troops were not prepared for Earth because they had never encountered such conditions. We can change that. Zixthor spoke up. I support this proposal. It would benefit all Council species to learn from humanity's experience. The motion passed, and Earth's first major export to the galaxy became survival training. Within a month, the first class of Council soldiers arrived at a specially constructed facility in Canada. Zixthor attended the opening ceremony. The human instructors looked far too cheerful for people about to put soldiers through hardship. Welcome to Earth Survival Academy, the lead instructor announced. For the next 12 weeks, you will learn how humans live on their homeworld. You will experience different climates. You will learn to identify and avoid dangerous wildlife. You will build shelters and find water and treat injuries. You will also learn, the instructor continued with a grin, why humans consider Earth home despite everything trying to kill us. The training program became famous across the Council. It was brutal but effective. Soldiers who completed it could operate in environments that would have killed them before. More importantly, they came back with deep respect for humanity. One graduate described it as learning to think like a survivor instead of a tyke. Then, the crisis came. A hostile species called the Vexnar began attacking Council territories. They were aggressive and well-armed and had defeated 3 Council defense fleets. An emergency session was called. We need military support, Counselor Thrace admitted. Our forces cannot match Vexnar aggression. All eyes turned to Ambassador Chen. You want Earth's military assistance? She stated. Yes, we are formally requesting aid under the mutual defense provisions of the treaty. Chen was quiet for a long moment. We will help, but we will do this our way. Earth will send 1 battalion of peacekeepers. That is 500 personnel. 500? Thrace looked insulted. We need thousands of soldiers. You will see what 500 humans can accomplish, Chen replied calmly. The Council was skeptical, but desperate. Earth sent the 1st Expeditionary Battalion. Zixthor was assigned as liaison. Met the battalion commander, Colonel James Park, at the staging area. Admiral, Park shook his hand with grip that was carefully gentle. I understand you know Earth well. I have studied your people extensively, Colonel. Good, then you know we prefer to avoid killing when possible. The Vexnar will not surrender easily. We will see, Park smiled. The battalion deployed to the contested border world of Trellix 9. The Vexnar had a significant force entrenched there. Council forces had been unable to dislodge them. Park studied the situation. We will need flashbang grenades, tear gas, and sonic weapons. Those are non-lethal crowd control devices, Zixtor said, confused. Exactly. The operation began at dawn. The humans moved through Vexnar positions with terrifying efficiency. They used smoke to mask their approach. They used sonic weapons to disorient defenders. They used flashbangs to stun, confuse. The Vexnar, who Council forces had fought for weeks, fled in panic from weapons that did not even kill. Within 48 hours, the entire Vexnar force had retreated off-world. What did you do to them? Zixtor demanded. We scared them, Colonel, Park explained. The Vexnar are used to fighting enemies that use lethal force immediately. We used tactics they had never encountered. You won with weapons designed for crowd control. Admiral, we learned to fight each other on Earth, Park said seriously. Humans have been at war for our entire history. We developed weapons that could destroy our entire species. Then we realized we needed weapons that could win without destroying everything. So you created non-lethal options. We created options, Park corrected. Sometimes you need to destroy the enemy. Sometimes you need to stop them without killing them. We learned to use appropriate force. Zixtor realized what that meant. Council has been fighting with maximum force because we have no other option. Now you do. We can teach you. The news of Earth's victory spread across Council space. 500 humans had accomplished what thousands of Council troops could not. More species began requesting Earth's military training programs. Humans began teaching Council forces about strategy, tactics, and measured response. They taught them that survival was not about having the biggest weapon. It was about adapting to the situation. Months later, Zixtor found himself back on Earth for a diplomatic function. He watched human children playing in a park. They were feeding bread to large birds that humans called Canadian geese. One of the geese began attacking a child who had run out of bread. The bird was hissing and striking with its wings. The child laughed and ran away while the goose chased. Hilarious. Zixtor's aide was horrified. Should we help that child? No, Zixtor said quietly. Watch. The child circled around and came back with more bread. The goose stopped attacking immediately and began eating. The child was never in danger, the aide realized. No, but the child also was not afraid, Zixtor explained. Humans grow up on Earth learning to deal with aggressive animals. They learn early that fear is not useful. He watched the children play. Do you know what makes humans dangerous? He asked his aide. Their survival skills, their military tactics, the aide replied. No, Zixtor said. What makes them dangerous is that they consider Earth normal. They think a planet that kills most species is just home. They are not trying to be terrifying. They are just being themselves. That is more frightening than any weapon. Exactly. A young human boy approached them. Are you the aliens? He asked with bright eyes. Curiosity. We are visitors from the Galactic Council, Zixtor's aide said nervously. Cool. Do you want to see my bug collection? I caught a tarantula yesterday. The aide made a sound of distress. Tarantulas were venomous hunters that most species would classify as dangerous predators. This child kept one as a hobby. Perhaps another time, Zixtor said diplomatically. The boy shrugged and ran off to play. Admiral, his aide whispered, how do you do this job? How do you stay here among these creatures? Zixtor watched the children playing, and the geese attacking, and the humans laughing at things that should terrify them. Someone has to, he replied. Someone has to make sure humanity stays friendly. Someone has to remind the Council what we are dealing with. Are you afraid of them? Zixtor considered lying, but decided on honesty. Every single day, he admitted, I am terrified of what humans could do if they decided to stop being nice. Earth made them into perfect survivors, and they took that survival instinct and built a civilization. They could conquer the entire council if they wanted. Why do they not? Because they do not want to, Zixthor said simply. They want friends, and trade, and peace. They learned everything they needed to learn about violence on Earth. They fought each other for thousands of years. They know what war costs. He started walking back toward the diplomatic building. They are offering us a gift, he continued. They are teaching us to survive, to adapt, to think like they do. The council should be grateful. Grateful to be terrified? Grateful that humans prefer friendship to conquest? His aide looked back at the playing children. What would happen if humanity ever went to war with the council? Zixthor stopped walking. Nothing would happen, because that war would be over before it started. Humans would win, and we would never forget it. See them coming. But that is not going to happen. How can you be sure? Because I know humans now, Zixthor said with certainty. They already won the hardest war. They survived Earth. Nothing we can throw at them is worse than what their own planet did. They do not need to prove anything. They just want to live. Exactly. Zixthor looked up at the sky, where council ships orbited in peace. 6 months ago he had watched an invasion force destroyed by Earth itself. Now he watched humans, teaching the galaxy how to survive. The irony was not lost on him. The most dangerous species in known space wanted to help everyone else, and the council had better accept that help, because the alternative was learning what humans were truly capable of. And Zixthor never wanted to see that. He was afraid of humans. But he was far more afraid of what would happen if they stopped being nice.